emergency. Ma'am? What? I'm trying to get an ambulance to you. Hang on a minute. What's going on, ma'am?
June 6, 1996, 2:31 a.m. A frantic 911 call pierces the silence of a quiet Texas neighborhood. A mother is screaming. 2 little boys are dying. And by sunrise, nothing would ever be the same. Devin, age 7, Damon, age 5, stabbed in their own home while they slept. Their mother, Darlie, wounded and bleeding, told police an intruder had attacked them. But within 2 weeks, investigators made a shocking decision. They didn't arrest an intruder. They arrested her. The prosecution said the evidence was clear. The defense said it was a nightmare. The jury took less than 12 hours to decide. Darlie Routier was sentenced to death. But here's the question that haunts this case. What if the evidence was misunderstood? What if the science was flawed? What if an innocent woman has been waiting to die for a crime she didn't commit? Before we go any deeper, if you believe every case deserves the full truth, tap like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because your attention can force the world to take a second look. 2 boys are gone. A mother sits on death row. And the questions have never faded. DNA testing is still happening. Experts are still fighting. The case is still alive. So here is the question you have to answer for yourself. Do you believe the right person was convicted? Don't go anywhere. This case is far from over, and what you're about to hear challenges everything you think you know. Before that night, the Routier family seemed like so many others in their North Dallas suburb. Darlie and Darren Routier had been married for several years. They had 3 sons, Devin, age 7, Damon, age 5, and Drake, just 7 months old. Darren ran a small business testing electronic circuit boards. Darlie stayed home with the boys. Neighbors described them as friendly, involved parents. The kind of family you'd see at the park on weekends or waving from the driveway. Their home on Eagle Drive was nothing fancy, but it was theirs. On the evening of June 5, 1996, everything seemed normal. The older boys, Devin and Damon, were excited. School was out. Summer had begun. That night, Darlie and the 2 older boys fell asleep downstairs in the family room. Darren and the baby, Drake, were upstairs. It was a warm Texas night. The house was quiet. What happened next would change everything. At 2:31 in the morning, a 911 call came in from the Routier home. The voice on the line was frantic. Darlie Routier told the dispatcher that an intruder had attacked her family. She said she woke up to find a man in her home. She described a struggle. She said she'd been stabbed. Police and paramedics arrived within minutes. What they found inside was a scene of chaos and horror. Devin and Damon had been stabbed. Both boys were rushed to the hospital, but despite every effort, neither survived. Devin was pronounced dead at the scene. Damon died shortly after arrival at the hospital. Darlie had suffered wounds to her neck, arm, and shoulder. She was taken to the hospital for emergency surgery. Darren, who came downstairs during the attack, was unharmed. Baby Drake, still upstairs, was also unharmed. By sunrise, the Routier home was surrounded by police tape. Investigators began processing the scene. Neighbors gathered in disbelief. 2 children were gone. And the question everyone was asking was the same. Who did this? Darlie told police she'd been asleep on the couch when she woke to an intruder standing over her. She said he was a white male, wearing dark clothing. She described a brief struggle before he fled through the garage. She said she followed him, then returned to find her sons bleeding. In those first hours, the case seemed clear. A mother and her children had been attacked. The family was traumatized. The community rallied around them. But as investigators began to examine the evidence, doubts began to surface. And those doubts would eventually turn the entire case upside down. In the days following the attack, The Rowlett Police Department worked around the clock to process the Routier home. What they found, and what they didn't find, would become the foundation of the prosecution's case. According to investigators, there were problems with Darlie's account from the very beginning. First, the scene itself. Darlie said an intruder had come through a window in the garage, cut a screen, entered the home, attacked the family, and fled the same way. But investigators said the evidence didn't support that story. The window screen had been cut, but investigators argued the cut appeared to have been made from the inside, not the outside. They said there was no dirt, no disturbance, no sign that anyone had climbed through. There were no fingerprints on the windowsill, no footprints in the mulch outside, no fibers, no evidence, they said, that anyone had entered or exited the home that way. Then there was the knife. A butcher knife from the Routier's own kitchen was found on the counter. Investigators believed it was the murder weapon. They said it had been wiped clean, but traces of blood were still present. The prosecution would later argue that this detail was critical. Why would an intruder use a knife from the home, then leave it behind? Blood evidence became the centerpiece of the state's case. Experts hired by the prosecution analyzed blood spatter patterns on Darlie's nightshirt. They testified that some of the blood on her shirt was consistent with cast-off, meaning blood flung from a knife in motion. They argued that the cast-off pattern showed Darlie had been holding the knife and raising it repeatedly. In other words, they said, she was the one who stabbed the boys. There was also blood evidence in the kitchen sink. Investigators said they found blood diluted with water, as if someone had tried to wash something away. They theorized Darlie had cleaned the knife there. But the defense challenged nearly every piece of this forensic evidence. They argued that the blood spatter analysis was flawed and that the so-called cast-off could have come from other sources, including Darlie's own injuries. They pointed out that Darlie had a severe wound across her throat. Blood from that wound could have transferred to her shirt in many ways. They said the prosecution's theory was based on assumptions, not certainty. Darlie's injuries were also debated. She had been cut across the neck, narrowly missing major arteries. She had bruises on her arms. She underwent surgery and spent days in the hospital. The prosecution argued that her wounds were superficial, self-inflicted to make it look like she'd been attacked. They said the cuts were too shallow, too controlled. The defense countered that Darlie came within 2 millimeters of her carotid artery. They said anyone who would cut that close to a major vessel was either incredibly lucky or truly fighting for her life. Then there was the matter of motive. Why would a mother kill her own children? Prosecutors pointed to financial troubles. Darren's business was struggling. Bills were piling up. They suggested Darlie was overwhelmed, depressed, desperate. But the defense said there was no history of abuse, no signs of violence, no evidence Darlie had ever harmed her children. Friends and family described her as a devoted mother. Still, investigators felt confident in their theory. Within 2 weeks of the murders, Darlie Routier was arrested and charged with capital murder. The case was no longer about finding an intruder. It was about proving that Darlie herself was responsible for the deaths of Devin and Damon.
If I had done this to my children, I would be the first person to stand up and say, oh my God, I need help. What have I done? You know, a mother couldn't live with herself.
But now, Darlie, they're saying that you could live with it because you're a psychopath and that you could kill and not have a conscience
Sure, that
about
fits
it.
their theory.
What really worked for the prosecution at the trial was this videotape of the party at the grave.
Do you not say, as I do, oh, for heaven's sake, Darlie, chewing gum, smiling, spraying silly string,
Well,
and the jury wanted to see it over and over again? You still don't think it was wrong?
no. Maybe it's not the way that everybody would choose to do. But I can guarantee you the last thing a guilty person would do was to do that. I know the truth. I know what really happened. I'll leave this world with a free conscience.
Darlie Routier's trial began in January 1997, 6 months after the deaths of her sons. The case had been moved to Kerrville, a small town in the Texas Hill Country, due to intense media coverage in Dallas. She was charged with the murder of Damon, the 5-year-old. Prosecutors chose to try that case first. A second charge, for Devon's death, remained pending. The stakes could not have been higher. The state was seeking the death penalty. The prosecution's case rested on 3 main pillars: forensic evidence, the lack of an intruder, and Darlie's behavior after the murders. Prosecutors told the jury that the forensic evidence was overwhelming. They brought in experts who testified about the blood spatter on Darlie's nightshirt, the cast-off patterns, the lack of evidence supporting a break-in. They argued that the scene had been staged. The cut screen, the sock found in the alley behind the house. All of it, they said, was designed to make it look like an intruder had been there. The sock was a key piece of evidence. It was one of Darren's white tube socks, found 75 yards from the house. It had blood from both boys on it. Prosecutors said Darlie had planted it there to support her intruder story. But the defense argued the opposite. How could Darlie have run 75 yards down an alley in the middle of the night, while bleeding, and returned without leaving a trail? They said the sock proved someone else had been there. The defense presented their own experts. They challenged the blood spatter testimony, arguing that the science was not as definitive as the state claimed. They said the patterns could have been caused by Darlie's own movements as she tried to help her children. They also emphasized her injuries. Dr. Alejandro Santos, a surgeon who treated Darlie, testified that her neck wound was serious. He said it was not superficial. Family members testified on Darlie's behalf. Her mother, her sister, friends, all said she was a loving mother who adored her children. They said she had no reason to harm them. But the prosecution had another card to play. 8 days after the murders, the Routier family held a graveside birthday party for Devon, who would have turned 7. They brought balloons, silly string, and cake. They sang happy birthday. The event was recorded on video. And when prosecutors played that video in court, it became one of the most controversial pieces of evidence in the entire trial. In the footage, Darlie is seen smiling, spraying silly string, laughing with family. To the prosecution, this was proof. They argued that no grieving mother would behave this way. They said it showed a lack of remorse, a lack of genuine emotion. The defense tried to explain. They said the video showed only a few minutes of what was actually a 2-hour gathering. They said there had been tears, prayers, and deep sadness. But the prosecution only showed the jury the smiling moments. It didn't matter. The damage was done. Jurors would later say the video had a powerful impact on their decision. Both sides made their final appeals. The prosecution painted Darlie as a selfish woman who killed her children because they were in the way. The defense called it a rush to judgment, a case built on questionable science and assumptions. After 11 days of testimony, the case went to the jury. They deliberated for less than 12 hours. On February 1, 1997, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty. 3 days later, the same jury sentenced Darlie Routier to death. She was taken to Texas's death row in Gatesville, where she remains today. For the prosecution, justice had been served. For Darlie's family, the fight had only just begun.
I believe in her.
Darlie, do you have any comments? Is there anything you would like to say?
I didn't murder my children.
Darlie Routier has spent more than 25 years on death row, but her case did not end with the verdict. Almost immediately, her defense team began the appeals process. They argued that she had not received a fair trial, that evidence had been mishandled, that the forensic testimony was flawed, and that critical information had been withheld from the jury. Over the years, multiple appeals have been filed. Some have succeeded in delaying execution. None have overturned the conviction. But the legal fight has uncovered new information and raised serious questions about the evidence used to convict her. One of the most significant developments in the case has been the push for DNA testing. At the time of the trial, DNA technology was not as advanced as it is today. Many items from the crime scene were never tested. These items include the sock found in the alley, fingerprints that were never identified, hair fibers collected from the scene, and blood samples that were never fully analyzed. For years, Darlie's defense team has fought for the right to conduct modern DNA testing on this evidence. They believe it could prove that someone else was in the home that night. In 2008, a judge granted permission for DNA testing on several items. The process has been slow, complicated by legal delays, lab backlogs, and procedural disputes. Some results have been released, but so far, no DNA has definitively pointed to an intruder, and no DNA has conclusively ruled one out either. The defense argues that the absence of a match doesn't mean there was no intruder. It just means the right sample hasn't been found yet. In addition to DNA testing, the defense has also brought in new forensic experts to review the original evidence, and their findings have been striking. Several experts have challenged the blood spatter analysis that was central to the prosecution's case. They say the methods used in 1997 were outdated, even at the time. One expert, a bloodstain pattern analyst, testified in a post-conviction hearing that the cast-off interpretation was wrong. He said the patterns on Darlie's nightshirt were more consistent with contact transfer, meaning blood from her injuries, not from swinging a knife. Other experts have pointed out that the prosecution's timeline didn't add up. They say the amount of time it would have taken to commit the crime, stage the scene, and injure herself was unrealistic. But the state has stood by its case. Prosecutors argue that the new analyses are simply defense tactics, attempts to reframe evidence that was thoroughly examined at trial. There's also the matter of evidence that was never presented to the jury. Defense attorneys have pointed to several pieces of information they say were excluded or downplayed during the trial. For example, there was a bloody fingerprint found on the living room table. It has never been identified. It does not match Darlie, Darren, or the children. There were also reports of suspicious activity in the neighborhood around the time of the murders. Some neighbors reported seeing a black car driving slowly through the area. Others said they heard sounds that night. None of this was presented at trial. The defense argues this was a critical failure, that the jury never got the full picture. In 2019, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals granted Darlie the right to additional DNA testing. Her legal team has continued to push for further analysis, hoping that modern technology will finally provide answers. As of today, some testing is still ongoing. Results have been delayed by the pandemic, by legal disputes, and by the sheer complexity of the evidence. Darlie Routier maintains her innocence. In letters and interviews from prison, she has consistently said the same thing she said on that 911 call 25 years ago, that an intruder attacked her family. Her supporters believe her. Her detractors say the evidence is clear, and the legal system remains in limbo. More than a quarter of a century has passed since Devin and Damon Routier were killed. The house on Eagle Drive has long since been sold. The neighborhood has moved on, but the case remains unresolved. Darlie Routier is still on death row. She is one of 6 women currently under sentence of death in Texas. Her execution has been stayed multiple times as appeals continue. Legally, the case is still active. Her defense team continues to file motions, challenge evidence, and push for new testing. The state opposes most of these requests, arguing that the case was thoroughly tried and the verdict is sound. No execution date has been set. Why does this case continue to generate so much attention? Part of it is the nature of the crime, children killed in their own home. Part of it is the questions that never seem to go away. But perhaps the biggest reason is what the case represents. The Darlie Routier case is often cited by experts in forensic science reform. It's used as an example of how flawed analysis, outdated methods, and overconfident testimony can shape a verdict. In recent years, we've learned that some forensic techniques once considered reliable are actually far less certain than juries were led to believe. Blood spatter analysis, bite mark evidence, hair comparison, all have come under scrutiny. Organizations like the Innocence Project have successfully exonerated dozens of people whose convictions relied on questionable forensic evidence. And while Darlie Routier's case is not officially part of their work, it has become a focal point in the broader conversation about forensic standards. The question is not whether forensic science is valuable. It is. The question is whether it was applied correctly, interpreted honestly, and presented fairly. For Darlie's family, the fight is personal. Her mother, her sister, and her surviving son, Drake, have all spoken publicly in her defense. They believe she was wrongly convicted. They believe the real killer was never caught. Drake, who was only 7 months old when his brothers died, has grown up without his mother. He has visited her in prison. He has said he believes in her innocence. Darren Routier, Darlie's husband, stood by her for years. But eventually, the marriage ended. He has said publicly that he believes someone else was responsible, but he has also remained largely out of the spotlight. The prosecution has never wavered. They believe the jury got it right. They point to the evidence presented at trial. They say justice was served. And through it all, 2 lives remain at the center of this story. Devin and Damon Routier, 2 boys who loved superheroes, playing outside, and being kids. 2 boys who never got the chance to grow up. No matter what anyone believes about this case, one thing is certain: they deserved better. They deserved a childhood. They deserved safety. They deserved justice. The legal process will continue. DNA results may one day provide new answers. Appeals may one day result in a new trial, or they may not. But the real lesson of the Darlie Routier case may not be about guilt or innocence. It may be about how we pursue the truth. It may be about the responsibility we have to question, to verify, and to never stop demanding that justice be thorough, fair, and honest. Because in a case like this, where a mother sits on death row and 2 children are gone forever, we owe it to everyone involved, to Devin, to Damon, to Darlie, and to the pursuit of truth itself, to get it right. Darlie Routier remains on death row in Texas. DNA testing is ongoing. The case remains under appeal. In memory of Devin and Damon Routier. The Darlie Routier case forces us to confront difficult questions about our justice system. Questions about how evidence is collected, how science is used in courtrooms, and how we decide who lives and who dies. This case has been debated for more than 25 years. Experts disagree. Families are divided. And 2 young boys will never come home. Whether you believe Darlie Routier is guilty or innocent, one truth remains undeniable. Our system must get it right. Because once an execution is carried out, there is no going back. There is no appeal. There is no chance to correct a mistake. The fight for answers continues. The fight for justice, however we define it, continues. And the memory of Devin and Damon Routier reminds us why that fight matters. If this case has made you think, if it's raised questions you can't ignore, then don't stay silent. Here's what you can do. Learn more. Research the case. Read the court documents. Look at both sides. Form your own opinion based on facts, not headlines. Support forensic reform. Organizations like the Innocence Project, the National Registry of Exonerations, and the Texas Defender Service work every day to ensure that outdated science doesn't decide someone's fate. Consider supporting their work. Speak up. Share this story. Talk about it. Ask the hard questions. Demand that our courts use the best science, the most rigorous standards, and the deepest commitment to truth. Stay informed. Darlie Routier's case is still active. DNA testing is ongoing. Appeals are pending. Follow the updates. Pay attention. Because justice delayed is not justice denied. It's justice demanding we get it right. And finally, remember Devin and Damon. 2 boys who deserved a full life. 2 boys whose deaths should never be forgotten, no matter what we believe about how they died. If you believe the system failed, fight to fix it. If you believe the system worked, fight to protect it. But whatever you believe, don't look away. This case isn't over. The questions aren't answered. And the pursuit of truth is never finished. Share this documentary. Start the conversation. Demand better. Because in the end, justice isn't just about one case. It's about every case. It's about all of us.